All right. This lesson today is called Living Language, Language Change and Survival. Today we're going to be comparing English and Dini Wiya. We will see how these languages evolved over time by loaning, borrowing, expanding, and creating new words. A lot of our common words in our English language are actually loan words. So some of the words that we have loaned from other cultures is ballet, which is a French word, and it is a form of dance. Another is fiesta, which is another word for party that is from the Spanish language. And the last one is a word for a pre-grade school class, kindergarten, and that is from German. It literally means child garden. Can you think of any other words from French, Spanish, German, or another language that we use in English? Some examples I can think of are cafe, which is coffee house in French. Um, cul-de-sac, which means bottom of the bag. Bureau, which is French, means office. Some Spanish ones are patio, siesta, Montana. There are a lot of loan words that we use every day. The primary reason for borrowing and lending words is the blending or mixing of different cultures and populations of people. So, say when the word for a French bread roll came to the US, we kept it as croissant. Indigenous languages loan some of their words to English too. Does anyone know words like hammock, barbecue, and kayak? Those were all loaned from indigenous languages, which is which are from hamaka, a word from the Tanio language, barbacoa, and I'm assuming that's kayak. They were all loaned from indigenous languages when the English people came from the West and kind of took over. They learned about these indigenous things and they took the word. So think, pair, and share. English loanwords in D&E. English loans some of its words to the D&E language. Looking at these D&E words, can you match them with one of the images below? So there are some easy ones and some that are a little more difficult. Like you can kind of see Gandhi, which sounds like this. Candy. And that kind of sounds like candy. And we can do a couple more of these, like this one. You can put it in here. Okay, this one does not have a audio file, so we'll try a different one, but that one's pop. Let's try this one.
Sock. Stocking.
So that one kind of sounds very similar to the English word for stocking, but it's spelled very differently. These ones might be a little bit more challenging, so let's try and match them by listening to what they sound like. So we'll start with this one right here. Try and put it in this talking dictionary.
Oh, see, or oh, straight must be
Boo street. Let's try this one here.
Hey, oh, shop or Hawks.
Hawks. which kind of sounds like the word hogs in English, but it's spelled very differently. Finally, let's do this one.
Copy. Copy.
Gape sounds a little bit like coffee. Using English, you may have been able to figure out several loan words in D&E that come from English. So when you listen to these words, they may look like they're spelled very differently, but in fact, they sound kind of similar to the English words that we're used to. Chinook Wawa is an indigenous language that also loans words to D&E. Let's listen and repeat how they're pronounced. So let's put these into the dictionary.
Sabali.
So let's Sabali,
Sabali.
and there are some other ways to say it, but Sabali. You can repeat that after me. Sabali, Sabali. And let's listen to this one.
Osho mashkaide. Or
Gushu.
mashkaide.
That's gushu. Gushu. That's pig. English in indigenous languages. Speakers of indigenous languages face pressures of colonization that devalued indigenous ways of knowledge and speaking and actively sought to suppress native beliefs and languages. Speaking Throughout all of these challenges, Silet's people kept on speaking their languages. To do so, they had to adapt languages to express new ideas and words that were introduced due to colonization. One of the ways that speakers did this was to borrow words from English and other languages. Another thing speakers did was to expand the meaning of existing words. Words in both English and D&E have expanded meanings. Some English words with expanded meanings is mouse. Now, when you hear the word mouse, you may think of the animal, a mouse. But there is another meaning, which is the mouse that you use on a computer. When you hear the English word for cloud, you often think of the fluffy white things that float in the sky. But there's also another meaning of cloud, which is the digital cloud, which is where we store a lot of data. Both of these words have expanded meanings. The D&E language includes words with expanded meanings, too. Now, we're going to put some of these into our talking dictionary to learn how they are said.
Goose. Or gumps. Or gumps. Head.
All right, so that's goose. Now we're going to look at this one to put it into the dictionary. Chavasri. Let's do that one more time. Chavasri. That one's pretty hard to say. Then there is the word for boat, which they derive from, hang on, let me copy that.
Boat. Hairless.
Hairness, which is canoe. And then finally,
Bow. Tutkush.
tutkush. So these are expanded words that had original meanings, which are on the right, and came to have expanded meaning after colonization. So potato came from the word for camas, which is a native plant. Clock came from the word for moon. Boat came from the word for canoe. And gun came from the word for bow. Now, some of these, it seems kind of obvious why they have this expanded meaning, but others, it's a little bit more difficult. Why do you think some of these words have been expanded to include these other meanings? We already did that. There are expanded meanings, and then there are new words. Expanding words can apply to a new meaning or word to create a whole new word. So there are, for example, is the word for basket, which traditionally meant a implement you can use to carry something. But by expanding the word, we have created basket hoop. So when you play basketball, you shoot into the basket. Even though it isn't a traditional basket, it still is considered a basket. There are some words that came into our vocabulary more recently. For example, the word Bluetooth. If you were to say Bluetooth to someone from the 1900s, they would think of a Bluetooth. They'd probably picture a more literal sense of the word. In today's world, we know that Bluetooth is a wireless gadget that is used to exchange data across different devices. Some more new words that came up recently are FaceTime, social distancing, and selfie. Apologies. What are some reasons why and how new meanings in words are created? Looking at the words in this word cloud, what are some reasons new meanings in words are created? Some of them could be new activities in sports, new inventions in technology, or ways of social interaction, like social distancing, and a global experience such as the pandemic, which equals social distancing. Identifying classroom objects. So, since we're not in a traditional classroom, you're going to look around your house and identify some items. What part of speech are they? Notice all the items you identified were talked about as things or nouns. So, for example, around me, I have a water bottle, which is a thing, so that is a noun. I have a piece of candy, which is the thing, that is also a noun. If you wanted to describe an object in the classroom without using the actual word, what would it sound like? What part of speech is used in these descriptions? A verb, an action, someone or something doing something. Notice that the items you described were talked about as actions or verbs rather than things. So in those examples, I would talk about a water bottle like something that you hold water in, or a piece of candy, something sweet that you eat. Okay, so we're going to start this activity called catchphrase. In just a moment, while I organize myself. Catchphrase is a game where you are given a word and have to guess or describe it to a partner without using the actual word. You will have to try and guess the word based on the description. So for this, we are going to, I'm going to stop screen sharing for a moment. One moment, please. Okay, now that I have stopped sharing my screen, we are going to do a different version of this catchphrase activity. So I'm going to describe some objects, just a couple from the list, and you guys are going to try and guess what I'm trying to describe. Okay? Something that you read with, something that you sit at and do work on top of, someone who instructs you during a lesson, something you write on that is on the wall, something that you write with, something that you use to measure or draw a straight line, something that you open and walk through, and something that you watch. Now, write down your guesses for those, and I will tell you what the answers are. So the first one I did was a book. The second was a desk. The third was a teacher. The fourth was a board, a dry erase board. The fifth was a pen. The sixth was a ruler. The seventh was a door. And the eighth was a TV. Now we'll do just a couple more. This time I'm only going to do 5. So something that you cut paper with, something that you eat in the middle of the day, something that you write on, something that during the school day you go outside and play, the time of the day during the school day where you go outside to play, and someone who learns a lesson. The first one was scissors, the second was lunch, the third was paper, the fourth was recess, and the fifth was a student. Now, I'm going to share my screen again. Let's do share. All right. So what does this activity have to do with D&E? So noun-based word things and words in English is how we name things. In D&E, they name things with verb-based words and actions. So a pencil is one writes with it. A backpack is one carries books and school supplies in it. Here are some new words in D&E. Now, we are going to listen to them and try our best to repeat them. So I'm going to use our dictionary again.
Waste. Not there.
I don't think this one is quite it. So we'll just move on to the next one. If I had to guess how this was said, I would say me, na, a. This next one doesn't have one either, so let's move on. Okay, here we go.
Coffee pot. Coffee mixture.
All right, so we'll try ga be me ficha e. So one makes coffee inside of it. That would be a coffee pot. Here's another one.
Seat. Kota justa.
Kutta justa. Say it again.
Kota justa.
Kutta justa. Justa. So that is one sits in it, so it would be a seat. Let's try this next one.
What? See.
Me'awatsi.
What? See.
Me'awatsi. That is, one learns inside of it. It would be a school.
You all are bringing food.
Oh,
It looks like it doesn't have this one either, so we'll move on. As well as this one. This one has the first part of the word for flowers, so
Blue, blossom.
chop by you.
chapayu, that is the first part, so that would be flower. Okay, now we're going to do a different activity where you are going to, well, I'm going to choose a word from the list and I'm going to read its description in English, and you are going to try and find and pronounce the bolded word in D neat. Since we couldn't find the word, all of the words, I will make sure to only use the ones I have taught you how to pronounce. So, one learns inside it. Take a moment to try your best to pronounce it. You can rewind the video if you need to, but actually, so take your best chance at pronouncing it. Pause the video if you need to, and then I will play it. Okay.
What? See.
Okay. Another one that we learned was this one right here. One sits in it. Take your best chance at trying to pronounce it. Okay, now we'll listen to it.
Just that.
Quita, just da. Good job. So, as you are exiting out of this video, I want you to consider one D&E word and what it means. You can pronounce it to yourself. You don't have to submit anything, but just think of maybe which one was your favorite to learn about, which one you had the easiest time pronouncing, and which one was the most difficult to pronounce. All right, thank you so much.